Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Laura Prada from the Telesur Studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. An Israeli missile strike has hit Syria's Quneitra province, killing at least one soldier. A Syrian military source cited by state news agency SANA said the Israeli enemy targeted one of our military positions. In Quneitra province, adjacent to the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, Israeli warplanes have regularly hit army positions inside Syria over the past 7 years, breaking international law and escalating tensions. And while the Syrian army continues its operation against terrorist groups in the northwest of the country, military forces have found evidence of al-Nusra and White Helmet collaboration in planning a false flag chemical attack. Our correspondent in Damascus, Hisham Wanous, has the latest for us in the following report. Let's see it. Welcome, Hisham.
The Syrian army, with the support of the Russian Air Force, has successfully completed its anti-terrorist mission in the northwest of Syria, to the south of Idlib province and north of Hama. It's important to highlight that the authorities say this operation is a response to the terrorist forces' continuous violations of the demilitarized zone. Established in Idlib and Hama, created in Aleppo by Turkey and Russia in September 2018. The terrorists attacked with more than 38 missiles to the north of Hama, with some hitting the Al-Suqalabiya National Hospital, causing the death of 5 people and injuring 12 more. The attack took place after an al-Nusra counter-attack in which they sought to retake the town of Kafr Nabuda, which was recently liberated by the Syrian army. More than 200 al-Nusra extremists participated in the attack with tanks and heavily armed vehicles. The army were able to repel the attack, killing at least 50 terrorists, as well as destroying their vehicles. The Syrian army is continuing to sweep for mines left by the terrorists in Kafr Nabuda. In the same area, the army found a terrorist White Helmet field hospital showing involvement with al-Nusra that held medicine and equipment, including gas masks, as well as anti-toxic suits, which were made in Germany. This provides evidence for the denunciation made by Damascus and Moscow, with the al-Nusra terrorists, with the support of the White Helmets serving foreign interests, prepared a false flag chemical attack in Idlib in order to encourage foreign intervention and impede the operations of the Syrian army. That's all we have until now.
Thank you, Hisham. And now we move on to another topic. The Huawei chief executive Ren Zhengfei told Chinese media that the U.S. crackdown on the tech company is not powerful enough to make other countries follow their lead and place it on their backlist. Despite Washington's move to clamp down on Huawei's 5G drive, Ren said the company will be able to resolve the issue by either boosting its own chip supply or funding alternatives. Trade talks between China and the United States have stalled again, but both parties said they were working towards a trade agreement to solve the dispute between the two countries, which began when Donald Trump administration placed heavy tariff on Chinese goods in June 2018. Ren went on to say that if Trump calls him, I will ignore him. Then who can we negotiate with? If he calls me, I may not answer, but he doesn't have my number. And the Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs, Lu Kang, has highlighted U.S. inconsistency during trade negotiations while calling for respect, equality, and mutual benefit between the two parties.
For a period of time, you may have noticed that the US side, including some high-ranking figures, has said various sayings about China-US economic and trade consultations. Sometimes they say a deal will soon be reached, other times they say it is difficult to reach a deal. But you can look retrospectively that during the same period, China's expressions have remained consistent. That is, first, we always believe that any differences between any two countries should certainly be settled through friendly consultations and negotiations. the China-US differences in economic and trade included. Second, we always uphold that China-US negotiations, including economic and trade negotiations, must be based on mutual respect, equality, and mutual benefit.
And the United States could possibly talk itself into a recession with the ongoing trade war with China and a government shutdown. The sentiment was expressed by President of Richmond Federal Reserve, Tom Barkin, who said this could cause consumers to delay big purchases, which could cancel expansion plans. Meanwhile, Oxford economics chief U.S. economist Greg Dacko and University of Oregon economics professor Tim Doy have warned of a recession bias among stock analysts, which could tip the United States economy from stable into a downward slide, even when the fundamentals like job creations and wage growth remains. And the Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz, who was ousted from office in a non-confidence vote, the opposition Social Democrats and his previous coalition ally, the far-right Freedom Party, backed the no-confidence motion. This comes after the leader of the Freedom Party had become embroiled in a political scandal caused by a secret video, and Kurz ended the coalition. In the video, Freedom Party leader and Vice Chancellor Heinz Christian Strache is seen offering public contracts to a Russian oligarch if she buys up an Austrian newspaper and makes it support the Freedom Party.
We gave our best efforts and we tried hard, and now we are tasked with the same task. After being voted out in Parliament, I called the President and assured him that we would help to create an ordered handover to the transitional government, and that we will support the transitional government, whomever he chooses. It's not about me, it's not about us, rather it's about the Republic of Austria.
And while the far right and the Greens were the biggest winners in the European elections, some of the results were uneven, for example in Greece. And our correspondent Ibai Arbide, who was there, has the latest for us from Athens in the following report. Welcome.
A day after the European elections, one conclusion is clear. The right has won. The right and the far right have grown stronger and the left has been weakened, while the Greens have emerged as a possibly decisive force, which could decide the majority in some votes in the European Parliament. Here in Greece, there is a paradox. This is one of the countries where the far right is the strongest. The neo-Nazi party Golden Dawn is the third force in the Greek Parliament. But yesterday, while the far right was growing in most of Europe, here it lost support. From 3 members of the European Parliament, it went down to 2. However, this is an exception. Elsewhere in Europe, we see significant results for the League of Italian Prime Minister Salvini, the new party of Marine Le Pen in France, the Brexit party of Nigel Farage in Britain, Wilders in the Netherlands, the ultra-conservatives in Poland. In Hungary, the Fidesz party of Prime Minister Viktor Orban won 56%, and the neo-Nazi Jobbik came second. So it's clear that across Europe, the far-right forces have made gains, and the moderate right, grouped in the European Popular Party, held on to the largest number of seats. They were followed by the socialists, who lost ground in most of the continent, although in Spain they maintained the momentum they got in April's general elections. The ALDE coalition of liberals is still the third force in the European Parliament, but what is most worrying is that the sum of the different parties of the far right, not yet attached to any parliamentary group, is very big, and that could mean they get even more weight.
Thank you, Ibai. Like this, we come to a first break here from the South. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and on my account, of course, at Laura P. Telesur. Stay with us.
“为了保持身体健康，我冥想。”
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής,
τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Get Your Body. Tuesdays, only on Telesur. Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on Telesur.
We are back, and now we go to Malawi, where protests against presidential election results have brought the country to a standstill, with the High Court announcing a nationwide lockdown. Demonstrations have been taking place in Malawi Congress Party, a stronghold across the country, after the Democratic Progressive Party, Peter Mutharika, won a second term with 38.5% of the vote. The opposition have contested the results, alleging irregularities. The schools haven't opened since May 21st election, and the United States has warned its citizens living in the country to stay at home.
Justice Dr. Jane.
And the Sudanese Red Sea port workers are staging a strike to support the country's ongoing revolution. The Seaport Corporation Workers Union has joined the Sudanese Professionals Association, called for a general political strike on Tuesday. According to workers, ports are essential to the strike because they are critical for mass economic projects. The groups are demanding that the ruling military council transfer leadership to a civilian-led transitional authority that is meant to oversee a 3-year transition towards democracy.
What we are resorting to here at the Seaports Corporation is to go on strike, a complete political strike, which is what the Sudanese Professionals Association has called for. The seaports are of great importance to the general political strike. For example, the port represents the sole transit to a series of economic projects. It also represents all products and services coming in and out of Sudan.
At least 45 people have died after a boat sank in the Western Democratic Republic of Congo. The boat sank on Lake Maindombe on Saturday. According to officials, over 400 people were on board, with reports that about 200 passengers are still missing. Search and rescue operations on the lake could take between 2 and 3 weeks. 11 children were among those who died. And in Bangladesh, fishermen have protested against the government for imposing a 2-month ban for fishing. The government imposed the ban last week in an effort to replenish depleted sea life, but protesters have submitted a memorandum demanding the ban be shortened to 1 month. However, as part of compensation measures, the government has announced it will provide free rides to badly affected fishermen. In Indonesia, police have arrested 6 suspects accused of plotting to assassinate state officials. A police spokesperson said the group were plotting to kill them during riots that broke out in Jakarta last week. Allegedly, the suspects received over $10,000 from an unidentified source of payment for the would-be killings. They have also been charged for being in possession of weapons, which carries a maximum penalty of life in prison.
On March 14, 2019, suspect HK received payment amounting to 150 million rupiah, and TJ received as much as 25 million rupiah from someone who we have identified. TJ was ordered to kill 2 national figures. I cannot say their names in public.
And the Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has met the governors of the country's 19 northern states to discuss worsening security conditions. A faction of the terrorist group Boko Haram has become increasingly active in the northeast of the country, attacking civilians and military targets. Hundreds of thousands of people have fled from their homes over the last decade because of these attacks. Meanwhile, in the northwest, kidnapping by the armed group have also become rampant. And authorities in Ghana have banned the export of some vegetables, including chili peppers, eggplants, over fears they are contaminated. The ban comes in the wake of a European Union directive to all countries to provide a report on the management of harmful bacteria. The Vegetable Producers and Exporters Association of Ghana have asked to postpone the ban, arguing it will affect the work of about 400,000 farmers, but authorities want to avoid new restrictions being imposed by the European Union on Ghana, as the most recent of which were only lifted last year. Comoros President Salim Amosomal took oath 2 months after his re-election. Asomani won by nearly 60% of the vote in the March polls, an outcome described as fraudulent by the opposition. Opposition's challengers stayed away from the swearing-in ceremony, accusing the president of undermining democracy. During his speech in the capital, Mourani Asomani said he wanted to relaunch dialogue with opposition leaders next week.
What I'm expecting is precisely for them to institute a new change, a new method and policy that speaks to the entire political class, and at the same time that is a dynamic, positive, social and economic approach.
Time for a second and very short break. Stay tuned.
Discover the cultural diversity that defines a continent. The place where art and tradition are part of the same nucleus. Artistic expressions, values, real life. Fridays, only on this world. Enjoy the best content in spaces where you will discover new perspectives, innovation, well-being, conservation, equity, traditions, a wide variety of contents that you will find on Telesur, the news source of Latin America and the Caribbean.
we are back and we talk about Latin America. In Bolivia has assumed the pro-tempore presidency of the Andean Community of Nations bloc for a period of 1 year. The handover of the presidency from Peru to Bolivia was done on Sunday at the CAN summit held in Lima, Peru. It was attended by presidents and foreign ministers of Bolivia, Ecuador, Colombia, and Peru. The president of this last country, Martín Vizcarra, urged the bloc to take decisive actions to combat corruption and climate change.
Together we have seen that we have a new danger that is affecting our countries, which is corruption. Corruption which does not recognize borders, and as a result, if we want to fight it adequately, we must also articulate common strategies. We are countries that have in the global framework the greatest vulnerability in the face of climate change, and we have to be together.
In Brazil, around 1,000 human rights activists and residents from the favela in Rio de Janeiro have taken to the streets to protest against police violence. Under the slogan, "Stop Killing Us," protesters gathered in Ipanema Beach while a mass demonstration in support of President Jair Bolsonaro was happening simultaneously on a nearby beach. Bolsonaro supports the shoot-to-killing policy in violent neighborhoods like favelas. According to official figures, over 430 police killings took place in the first 3 months of 2019.
My feeling is anger, is sorrow and sadness. I'm here. My son will not come back. Nothing that I or someone else does will bring my son back. But I would like this police violence in the favela to stop so no other mother feels what I'm feeling.
And we continue talking about Brazil. Clashes at a prison in Amazonas state have left at least 42 inmates dead. According to authorities, the clashes broke out on Sunday during visiting hours. Most of the dead were stabbed with toothbrushes or strangled to death. The cause of the clashes are still being investigated, and a riot at the same facility took place in January 2017 and killed 56 inmates.
Around 11 a.m., an internal fight broke out in Pavilions 5 and 3, leading the warden to activate immediately the prison intervention group. The riot caused the death of 15 inmates. The prison intervention group's action was fundamental so we could maintain control. The incident started around 11 a.m., and by 11:40 it had been contained.
70,000 families in Paraguay have been displaced due to continuous flooding of the Paraguay River. Weeks of heavy rains caused river to overflow. According to the Department of Meteorology and Hydrology, water is nearing disaster level. In the capital, Asunción, reaching over 7.5 meters in some places. Many have remained in their flooded houses. And now we go to Mexico because it's been more than 4.5 years since the disappearance of the 43 students from a rural teacher training college in Ayotzinapa in Mexico. The relatives of the victims are once again mobilizing to demand truth and justice. We have more for you on the following story.
Exactly 56 months have passed since the 43 Ayotzinapa students disappeared. Time has passed, but the hope of their parents to see them come back, or at least to know what happened, remains intact. During this protest, the families demanded that the Attorney General appoint a special attorney for the case, as President Andrés Manuel López Obrador had promised at the beginning of his term.
It is unbelievable or logical to wait so long. We have asked him to speed things up and call the attorney to appear before the commission to explain. That's why we don't think we will have to wait much longer.
Their desperation is palpable as they wait for results from the Truth Commission set up on December 3rd last year by presidential decree. Meeting after meeting, the parents have requested that members of the armed forces who might have been involved in the disappearance of their children be called to declare.
We have come to believe that the disappearance of our children was coordinated. They were present at the killing of 3 students. The Mexican army took pictures and videos. There are documents. but they aren't in the files. They are responsible, and we are demanding they be investigated.
Those who have supported the families say that clearing up what happened would send a clear signal that change is possible in this country, where there are 40,000 disappeared people, according to official figures.
As long as this is not solved, things will get worse in this country or remain the same. I was thinking how surreal this all is, a country where 43 students can just disappear from one day to the next.
The relatives of the victims say it is essential that investigations speed up. In mid-June,